Right now on Indianapolis This Week, the 2014 Indiana General Assembly comes to a close. What bills were debated and passed in the final days? We're sitting down with the Senate Minority Leader, and the mayor lays out his latest plan to combat crime in Indianapolis, what the Fraternal Order of Police thinks about it. Plus, she's a Hoosier America woke up with every morning for a long time. Now she's giving back and releasing a new book. We're sitting down with Indiana's own Jane Pauley for a one-on-one interview.
From RTD6, the Indy Channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
We have a lot to get to with the conclusion of the 2014 Indiana General Assembly, but first, the latest developments with the accounting books of the Indianapolis Public Schools. Just 2 days after Superintendent Dr. Lewis Farabee declared that IPS does not have a $30 billion budget deficit, the district's former chief financial officer says the school system is looking at a projected $20 million deficit in 2014. Deborah Heinlein says she was dismissed as the CFO with no wrongdoing involved. Dr. Farabee found the budget had projects worth millions of dollars that were never spent, like the opening of 2 elementary schools. Heinlein defends the budget in question and says the district faces a tough year ahead.
Yes, there's a projected deficit.
And how much is that deficit, ma'am?
It's over $20 million.
We'll continue to be more efficient and leaner, and we'll continue to make sure that we're aligning our resources with our needs.
The district believes talk of a $20 million projected deficit is not accurate considering what they found in the actual numbers in 2013. Going forward, the board and the public will receive the full picture regarding the district's financial state with monthly and quarterly reports. Thursday night marked the end of the 2014 Indiana General Assembly. This session's discussion was dominated, as you may recall, by the same-sex marriage amendment. But at the end of the day, many laws were passed. In the last hour of the session, the Senate approved the proposal for mass transit, sending it to the governor's desk. This will let voters weigh in on whether they'll be willing to fund mass transit. The project, though, does not include light rail. Also on the last day, 2 of the governor's key initiatives were passed. A proposal to reduce the business property tax is expected to be signed into law, and the pre-K education grant program passed, focusing on the state's neediest children.
I think we've done the right thing by the families that we're going to be able to help. And by also having a longitudinal study of those kids so that we can observe what the impact is in their lives and their educational.
Joining us now is the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Tim Landon, who represents Indiana's 25th District, covering Muncie and much of Anderson. Welcome to the program. You've seen the governor already tell his party leadership, job well done. The Republicans saying agenda achieved in their press releases. Job well done, agenda achieved?
Well, I think the question, Rafael, is it an agenda for the future of the state of Indiana? And maybe in some ways, yes. Certainly, we're very happy that finally the Senate Republicans joined the rest of the caucuses in recognizing that pre-K education is essential for the future of the state of Indiana. I'm not so much sure that the significant mega tax cuts that they enacted for corporations and other businesses, it will necessarily play out in the best interest of the future of the state.
You called it short-sighted. That's a strong word.
Well, I say short-sighted because I think the question we raised was, will this really result in raising the income levels of the citizens of the state of Indiana? That's the real challenge that we have. Indiana, of course, being somewhere in the 40th, 41st lowest in the nation in terms of real wages. So the question becomes, how do you know this will raise wages? Many economists don't think it will. They say that's extremely tenuous, the idea of a favorable tax climate and actually raising wages for individuals. So time will tell. If it doesn't play out, then we've got a huge gaping hole in terms of our revenue stream that we either cut services, cut government even more, or somebody else gets a shift to that tax burden.
It seems to me that on Monday morning, the governor can start traveling around the state saying, look, I'm victorious. I got much of what I wanted. My supermajority helped me get there. Don't worry about those Democrats. In fact, we may not even need them. How would you respond to some sort of sentiment like that?
Well, first of all, you have to remember that the governor wanted a total phase out of the inventory tax. That's not going to happen. And I am concerned about what we did enact in terms of whether it's structured in such a way that's going to pit counties against counties. But I think what needs to happen now is a real debate about, was this the real way that we can raise wages in the state of Indiana, or are there other things such as training our workforce, putting a significant investment into early childhood education, looking at the overall status of the healthiness of our workforce and of our population in the state of Indiana. We didn't do anything to address that issue this session. So he may say that his agenda is accomplished, but again, the question is it a good agenda for the future of the state of Indiana?
But how do you provide a circuit breaker, right? If in fact Democrats have a different vision for the state of Indiana, you've seen the numbers, you know the numbers, I don't have to tell you that, that's not a surprise to you. How do you create an equal debate? Because right now the Republicans can do pretty much whatever they want.
Right, and then they're held accountable for whatever their actions are and the results of that. I think it's up to us as Democrats to have a message that resonates with people and at least poses a question that people can say, look, this is a valid issue we need to think about, discuss, and consider as to what is the way for the future of the state of Indiana. It seems to me the Republican Party, the Republican approach is pretty status quo. It's pretty much more tax cuts for business, more things to help a certain segment of our population, but does it help Hoosiers in general? And that will be the question I think that people will have to debate as we go forward.
So as you head Monday into your district, what will be the message going into this election cycle? What's the #1 thing you'll tell your constituents in Anderson, Muncie, and for the rest of the state to say, you know, consider the Democratic vision if that is an option?
Our Democratic vision is we feel the litmus test is it good for the future of the state of Indiana? So we stay away from issues like this marriage amendment and other hot button issues. We want to focus in on ways that we think we can really promote the state of Indiana. That includes saying we're a welcoming state, we're a state that values families, we value the health of our children and of Hoosiers in general. We want to see well-educated Hoosiers. We want to make an investment in pre-K education because we know the long-term, short-term and long-term benefits of that type of a program.
Senator Tim Landon, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Please come back to the program.
Rafael.
Joining us now are two of our political insiders, Democrat Lara Beck and Republican Jennifer Hallowell. Jennifer, have Republicans cemented their supermajority with what just happened in the legislature?
I absolutely think they have. And I also want to point out that, you know, a couple of weeks ago, a lot of Democrats were ready to close the curtain on the governor's agenda and saying that he couldn't get things done. And a lot of us were saying it ain't over till it's over. I think that's exactly what we've seen. And in the last couple of days, legislation that's passed at the General Assembly, you've got a crackdown on violent crime, you've got funding for roads, $400 million for infrastructure, tax cuts, economic development initiatives, and more importantly...
Well, I think if you're an average Hoosier, I mean, I don't think that, first of all, I don't think that the Republicans have cemented their supermajority at all. They wasted half of the session on the divisive gay marriage amendment, and that's going to resonate with people. But if you're an average person who gets up every single day, works 40 hours a week or more, maybe 2 jobs, trying to save a little bit of money, trying to educate your kids, this session did not do much for you.
So HJR 3 will not be an issue this cycle, will it?
Well, in campaigns this year, yeah. I mean, I think that remains to be seen.
I think it will. I think it will.
I think it will be in some campaigns, but not what we expect it to be.
2015, looking ahead, the budget always the big issue for the biennium. Beyond the money, will it be the programs or will it be about money?
Well, I think you need to have the money to have the programs. But I also think one of the things that's going to be really interesting is you've got this this tax cut, this corporate tax cut that we just had, the business personal property tax cut that went through. How is that going to impact with state revenue forecasts? You know, we're coming in under budgets. We're coming in under what those forecasts are. So how are we going to pay for some of these programs? You know, I do think it's terrific that Governor Pence did push through his agenda with pre-K. And Senator Lanane, I think, referred to that the Democrats were really supportive of that. Not all Republicans were. But I hope that we'll see more of that. But what's the fiscal impact as we're cutting these corporate taxes? How's it going to impact local governments? What
will be the big issue?
Well, she kind of led into what I was going to say. I mean, beyond the money issues that we expect, I do think that the pre-K funding is going to be probably a big issue. I think there will be a lot of education issues, but you know, the governor was successful in getting this pilot program started. They're also doing a study committee on that to kind of weigh all the benefits and then take a hard look at the numbers and whether or not this is something that we think we can do.
We're one of 9 states. We're one of 9 states with our universal program, so it's really an opportunity for us to do this.
At the fact that there was bipartisan support for the pre-K program. It has a price tag of $10 million. It was sort of on the edge of not making it, but that we are going to at least spend the money because this is not a budget year, and that was the biggest concern because it wasn't about a year. They didn't want to have a big budget ticket item on the books. So are you surprised that this passed?
I think it is it's one of the most critically important things we can do. As a parent, my son is 6. I've seen what a good quality pre-K program can do, and kindergarten really is the new first grade. So you've really got to have kids prepared to start. So I think it's important.
I do. I agree. And I think, it was one of the governor's key agenda items, and he was successful in getting all of his key agenda items passed at some level.
Election 2015 already underway, right?
Yes.
Yes. Well, let's get through 2014 first.
The conversation between our insiders. That's right, 2014 first, then 2015. Yes. Our conversation continues with our insiders on Twitter. Use the hashtag IndyThisWeek. Check out their Twitter handles. Give us your opinion, and you can stay up to date with Kip, Abdul, Lara, and Jennifer throughout the week and the election cycle of 2014 first and then 2015. The mayor is laying out a new plan to tackle violent crime in Indianapolis. Find out what the police think about it with Indianapolis This Week continues. Mayor Greg Ballard is laying out a new plan to deal with crime in the city, focusing largely on ending black-on-black violence. The mayor's Your Life initiative is the blueprint for a task force that will oversee anti-violence programs, more funding for parenting help, jail re-entry programs, and summer jobs for teens. The mayor called the murder rate among young black men a public health issue. So far, the city's homicide rate this year is on pace to break last year's 125 murders.
Much of this current cycle of violence is robbing us of an entire generation of young men of color, and it must stop.
Public Safety Director Troy Riggs says that the city's also asking legislators to enact tougher gun crime penalties. Joining us now is the Vice President of the Indianapolis Fraternal Order of Police, Rick Snyder. Welcome to the program. The mayor's plan, good?
It's a step in the right direction. However, we think that there's much more that needs to be done, especially as it relates to getting an increased number of our police officers out onto the street and more officers onto the department.
You have a commission, 42 pages. I want to bring up some of the points that commission report brings in. You talk about the IMPD officer shortage. You talk about there's a lot of fear still in the city caused by crime. And then the hot button issue is the issue of the public safety tax. Let's begin first with the officer shortage. How big is it?
Right. We have an IMPD staffing commission that's at work on this issue right now, and what we have consistently seen is that we're hundreds of officers short. Every comparative analysis and study that we've looked at suggests that we're anywhere from 400 to 800 officers short, but we do believe that we could get to a more successful community policing model if we could get a net gain of at least 250 police officers.
The city tells us that crime is down. So why is there fear if crime is down?
Well, when we go into these neighborhoods and we speak to the residents and our partners who are out in the community, one thing we hear is that fear of crime is through the roof. And frankly, we think that a lot of that has to do with the less visible presence of police officers in their neighborhoods. The other component to that, as you alluded to, is this: we're on track for a record number of homicides this year. Violent crime is in the news every single day, and frankly, our residents feel it and they see it, and they're on the front lines of it.
The big hot button issue is the issue of that tax.
Sure.
Are you kidding me? I mean, are folks really going to want to support a tax?
Yeah, so what we have come to is a couple of years ago we started talking about this issue, and we put this issue on the forefront, and folks told us then that they would pay more in taxes if we could confirm that it would go to public safety. We told them in fairness, wait, let us make sure that we're being as efficient and effective as possible. We, with the help of the Director of Public Safety, put $8 million back onto the table into this equation. We're now to where we cannot cut any further in the police department. So unless we significantly cut somewhere else in the city budget, our only other option is to raise revenues to offset the cost for these additional officers.
And Rick, I asked the question, are you kidding me? Not to offend anyone, because I believe that the men and women of the department deserve everything that they need, right?
Right.
But you've heard from this mayor and this administration saying that raising taxes would be the last option.
Well, we're there. We're there to the last option. Otherwise, we need to see another plan on the table. What we consistently see is there is no other plan. We have a $15 million deficit in the IMPD right now. If we increase the public safety tax, which we can do, the council already has the authority to do it and the mayor to sign it, we can actually eliminate that deficit and get the officers that we need.
And the reality is that behind the scenes, people are talking about this tax. So this is not some sort of phantom proposal, right? You have already seen some numbers and charts of something that could come together.
Right. Our options have been presented by the CFO of the City County Council to the Staffing Commission in a public forum, and that is the option that funds what we need. And the raising the public safety tax equates to $25 million more a year. That's about $2.50 a paycheck for someone making about $50,000 a year.
And how will you sell that tax to the public then? Is it something that has to be only for Metro Police and not for sewers or streets or things? Does it have to be just for Metro?
The public safety tax does have to be for that, but by it being dedicated to the police department, it allows those other dollars to stay where they are currently now with streets and the other needs that we have in the community.
Rick Snyder, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Our Sunday Spotlight is Jane Pauley. She's up next as Indianapolis This Week continues. For 13 years, Indiana native Jane Pauley anchored the desk of The Today Show and worked on the NBC Nightly News. Pauley is making an impact on the Indianapolis community in so many different ways now, helping open a medical clinic 4 years ago and serving on the board of the nonprofit Indianapolis group, The Mind Trust. Now she has a new book out titled Your Life Calling. Jane Pauley joins us right now on Indianapolis This Week. Your book is all about those folks turning 50 in 2014 and thinking big.
Well, all the baby boomers in 2014, I say we're all in. They all turned 50. The Gen Xers are turning 50 now. And we're really redefining what it means to go forward in life. It's not something that we invented. This is a global fact. It's not a fad. People are living longer and, notwithstanding some unhealthy lifestyle choices, living healthier longer. So the question for my generation and every generation after is, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? It's not we may retire like our parents did, but not like our parents did.
Right.
So the question, is raised. How are you going to spend those bonus years or decades even? This is a question our parents didn't have to think about.
And you talk about it in the book. It's not about that you retire to something. You retire to something else, right?
You're from something else, and we're not talking about a new career, though some do. I've got people in there who have careers that weren't invented a decade ago. There's a stager, home stager. You're selling your house and there's a guy who is a sand carver. This is not a career you ever thought of or need to.
Only if you were on the beach.
What else? I forget. But it's not about careers so much. It's about how to be productive, creative, engaged in your community, in your neighbors, or finding a way to I think if my generation, a fraction of us, realized how much our lives still matter, we could redeem our youthful legacy.
You surprised me on I wrote it down, page 53, when you talked about your sister, Anne.
Yes.
I was expecting it to be a full chapter about Anne, but it was really about what Anne learned when she was told that she was that crystal in that chandelier, and how people in many regards are meant not to be at center stage, but to help others shine.
My sister and I both are Warren Central graduates. Both went on to Indiana University, where my sister was a math major and Phi Beta Kappa, smart cookie. She ran one of the first women to run a global manufacturing company. And as a leader, she was told, Ann Pauley is like an irreplaceable crystal in a priceless chandelier. What's that mean? And as she said, she always felt her goal on a leadership team was to help others shine. And she told me, her little sister, that I had a gift for helping people see themselves in positive and powerful new ways, which kind of illuminated the assignments at NBC I liked best and the stories I thought I told best. And if there's a mission statement for my book, Your Life Calling, reimagining the rest of your life, it's helping people imagine the future in some powerful new way. But had she not told me that, it wouldn't have, sometimes we need other people to tell us what your special thing is, the thing that you do naturally, that you take for granted, that makes you the go-to person at school or the go-to person at the station or in the neighborhood or your church. And once you're told this thing, it empowers you. It validates that I should do this more. And that's one might be one clue to how you might reimagine your life.
Another aha moment was with Michael J. Fox, who told you, right? Michael J. Fox, who told you, no, say no, because it's yes that moves you forward.
He said, yeah, no doesn't get you anywhere. Say yes as much as possible. That was in the spring of last year, and it became my New Year's resolution, as in May, say yes more. My New Year's resolution for 2014 was to say yes to more new things. We'll see, resolutions. But when you have an idea like that, it gives you more intentionality. I could very easily sink into a comfort zone. I could.
But you don't.
Someone told me, a reporter asked, is this about, stepping out of your comfort zone? And I said, no, it's about finding the limits of your comfort zone. It's stretching your comfort zone. But it's not about an extreme makeover. It's just about continuing to be using the experience or your skills in some powerful and positive way.
I'm so happy you said yes to this interview, because you have been a delight. Make sure you get her book, bookstores, Amazon, wherever you can find it. Get the book, Your Life Calling, with Jane Pauley. Jane Pauley, thank you so much.
So kind.
Please come back again.
You. Oh, please invite me.
We will. You're awesome. Thank you. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, and the celebrations will be happening in downtown Indianapolis. The annual St. Patrick's Day Parade will kick off at 11:30 in the morning at North and Pennsylvania Street. Now, be sure to look out for Kevin Gregory, Erica Fly, Todd Connor, and Dave First. They'll be in the parade with their green on. And that's it for this edition of Indianapolis This Week. I'm Rafael Sanchez. We're all Irish on St. Patrick's Day. Enjoy all of your St. Patrick's Day celebrations, and have a great Sunday.